you doing?
Here we are again.
Here we are. I really kind of come up with a better opening for those faithful listeners that listen all the time. They're going to get sick of me always starting off with my high-pitched. I bet you my sister's irritated. I bet you right now in Chicago, there's a girl who's going, ugh, there she goes again.
Well, speaking of listeners, I was talking to my dad the other week, and he was telling me about this woman that they were friends of my parents, and my dad brought up that he was on our podcast, and she was like, ooh, what's that? And so she tuned in because she was interested in seeing my dad on this podcast, and now she's a regular listener to the show, and she was like, oh, thank you for sharing this with me. This is something that I totally enjoy and love. And so I want to give a shout out to Bev in Wisconsin. I want to say thank you for listening and being a regular listener. We totally appreciate our listeners, and it makes it all worth it. Even if one person listens to the show, it makes it worth it. But all the downloads that we've had, it's amazing. And I think I shared with you the other day, we had, Buzzsprout, who is our platform that puts this podcast out into the world for us. They send me this recap for 2022, and people have listened to us in 26 different countries.
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
It is crazy, especially as a mom who's half the time my kids don't even listen to me. I'm like, who's going to listen? No one's listening. But
people in 26 different countries are listening to you, Graciela.
I'm so sorry. No. I'm excited.
And Bev in Wisconsin is listening to you.
Thank you, Bev in Wisconsin. That's really exciting. See, and now you're memorialized for all time. So you can tell your friends, I was mentioned in an international podcast. You know what? I don't know about you, Julietta, but I get so much out of doing this podcast as much as we're doing it for everyone else and putting all this stuff out there just because we think people really need it. And I love spreading these messages. I get so much out of it myself. So let's just do a round of thank you, gratitude to you, to our listeners. I'm so grateful.
And to our guests, I am so amazed. Every guest just brings it and has something special to bring. I always laugh. I'm not going to name any episodes or any guests or anything, but there have been episodes that have been a little bit of a struggle for me as the host. And, but it's almost it was a message from the universe for me to know that it doesn't matter my perception of the show, because that show is there for somebody. And two particular shows in mind, they come to mind immediately that was a tough interview for me. And both of those episodes, I've had people come and tell me how important the message from that show was for them, or how much that episode resonated with them. And I was like, wow, that was important for me to hear, so that I can, I just really stay in an open space. And not everybody that is a guest on the show is going to be someone that I connect deeply with. And that doesn't mean that it's not important to have them on the show, because they're there for somebody who's listening to hear. They have the message that they need to hear in the words that they need to hear it for them to understand it.
Exactly. We talk about that all the time, right? Because sometimes I look at all of our episodes together and I'm like, there are those universal truths that keep coming up, but every episode, it comes out in a different way. And I think that's been my big lesson here, is that every universal truth has to be said in a ton of different ways so that it reaches as many people as possible. So I love it. I love that those same things keep coming up, because they keep teaching me this is true. This is the truth. This is the path. This is the way, So I love what we're doing. And I love all of our guests. Let's just talk about how it is that the universe brings everyone together so perfectly. Why at this moment in this time, at this phase of my life, do we get the person to talk about XYZ, which fits perfectly with what I need in my life, much less everyone else that's listening, but it's just what I need. Like, how lucky is that? I don't know. Is it luck? I don't know.
There are no coincidences. There's no such thing as luck. It's all synchronicity.
Isn't it though? That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, who do we have on today?
Ooh. Dun, 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 dun. Drum roll, please. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, ladies. Oh, so much fun listening to you too. So much to say about the universe. I think we're right, guys.
Welcome.
Thank you, ladies, so much for having me today.
We are so excited that you're here. Will you please take a moment and introduce yourself to our audience? Tell them about who you are and the magic that you do.
Well, my name is Michelle DeKeyser, and I am all about connection. I want to bring those moms together who feel like they've lost something, and let's work together to find it. And so it's all about just bringing that connection and that circle and that community and that safe space so we can grow as moms together. And so if you ladies want to come check something out on connectingmamas.com, there's a free gift just for you guys. Just go straight to the website, hit free gift, and my framework check-in. There'll be a video for each one of those just to get a little bit of taste and start checking in with yourself and checking in with others around you and learning. Again, it's those baby steps because we forgot. We've been so disconnected with each other. We need to take those little steps to learn how to do that again and bring that connection to each of us because we really are innate to belong and connect to each other. But it's how do we do that again? We've lost so much along the way.
I love your message. And, I'm a mom. I have 13-year-old twins, and then I have adult bonus children, and one of them has 2 little girls. So we're grandparents too. And the mom journey is something that I don't care how many books I've read and how many moms I've talked to, nobody can really prepare you for it until you actually go through it. And believe me, I tried. I really did read all the books. But I think you're right on the money as to there being a loss and a reconnection that needs to happen. And the loss happens at the same time as your biggest gain and gift. So it's really mentally a lot of gymnastics to figure out right how to be. I know that I myself have tried to set up, fun little mom nights here at the studio, and half the moms can't get themselves together to get here because they're busy being moms. Right. But I think it's the time in your life when you really need the most connection is when you're a mom. So it's really kind of a crazy time. Tell us one of your success stories. Like, how has what you are doing affected the people that you work with? How have you created that?
So I want to preface that by saying that I'm in the beginning phases of starting. So I just had done my first beta course with a couple different moms. And at first I was like, I didn't have the number in my head that I thought I was needed to do this course. Because again, part of what I want to do in my paid course is to match make them and give them these groups to take with them afterwards. So I was like, I don't have enough to do it. Like, no, just stop, go with what you have. And so I did. And so we ran it a little bit differently where I didn't necessarily give them the match groups. And so at the end, I said, when I start this up again the new year, because you were just a big course, you can join a bigger group. But what the one mom in her testimony said to me was like, I was so sad when the 6 weeks was over. And that was the key to me, because that was the whole point, was this isn't supposed to end for them. By the end of this group, they're supposed to have this bridge to take with them, because it's never the end. Like, we take these courses and we're good, or these moms workshops, or we go to moms night out, we feel good in that moment, but then what do we do afterwards? It's a journey. It's a marathon. It's not this sprint. And so that was just so heartwarming. She's like, I want more. And so that's what I want to make sure these moms get.
That's beautiful. And I think a lot of your message is also good for moms too, right? Because whether you're bogged down, and I say bogged down from the most loving place, but whether you're bogged down as a mom or as a career woman or anything else that you're focusing on, when you lose yourself, that's the real danger, right?
Well, the irony to that was, since I've been doing these business courses, some of the women in there just wanted to help support me. So there were non-moms actually in this first beta course. But it didn't matter. She's like, this is good for anyone. And she's she's actually, I'm meeting with her later today to give me a testimony on her experience with the course. I can't wait to hear her views on it. And she's like, I want to do the next one.
Well, and Graciela's right. Me as a non-mom, although as a physical therapist, I've worked with a lot of children and have been very motherly to a lot of children. But even having your own business as a woman, like my business is my child. And sometimes, you feel like you get lost in that, and it encompasses everything. And then where is there time for me and time for reconnecting? And the other thing that came to mind when you were speaking, like I think about when I was a kid growing up, like the neighborhood was full of kids and moms, and they were all connected and they all looked out for each other and all helped each other. And then me being one of the older kids, I was often the babysitter of the neighborhood so that the moms could have mom time and connection time. But life has gotten so different that it's rare to see, neighborhoods and communities like that anymore. So we have to find other ways to create that. So, thank you.
I completely agree. That's kind of where I was driven from as well, because I feel like in general in society, we've kind of boxed ourselves into our little cars, boxed ourselves into our little houses, and we stay in our lane. And then it's hard to adjust when we want that connection. We drive for it, like we feel it, but then we don't know how to get it. And somewhere along the line, I also said that we have to do this alone, and we have to know how to do it right. Like, so we could then go on Facebook and Pinterest and say like, oh, I need to do it like they're doing it, but then I have no idea how to do it. So rather than asking for help or getting ideas, we're just like, I'm inadequate in your head. And you just keep telling yourself that, but you can't admit that to anyone, because then you'd be a bad mom. And then it's just this vicious cycle. And so when we start to witness each other in these groups and just listen, we get those thoughts out of our heads, and we become friends to ourselves again. And ask yourselves, would you treat yourself like that? Would you treat a friend like the way you're talking to yourself? And start working towards that again. But again, these are all learned behaviors, limiting beliefs that we've had. And now it's time to come together to rid ourselves of them and work together towards it.
I will tell you one of the most freeing things another mom said to me. I had just had my twins. Maybe they were like 6 months or 8 months or something like that. And I went to my hairdresser, who also had twins, a couple of years older. So she was further along the path as me. And, she's like, how's it going? And I'm like, great. It's such a blessing. It's so wonderful. And secretly, I just wanted to jump off a bridge. And she said, she leaned over, because it was a salon full of people. And she leaned over and she got right in my ear. And she goes, it's a freaking nightmare, isn't it? And I was like, oh my God, thank you for being honest. I'm like, yeah. Like, I love my children so much, but man, that was really hard.
It's so true.
And I just needed somebody to talk, that I could say that to, right? Because I would go to work and I would say it to my coworkers. And I had this one coworker who was like, well, you asked for these children and this is what you wanted. And you wanted to be a mom. And I'm like, okay, but I'm still a person with feelings. Like, can't I just talk? So I felt almost judged in that space, where like I had to just be happy and great and everything had to match all the time. And I'm like, man, I just want to be a hot mess somewhere. Like, can't I just have feelings, So I think creating those communities is absolute vital. Which leads us to the next question. What is one piece of advice that you learned from another woman that changed your life?
This question was like the hardest for me, but then it brought me back to the roots of, I loved reading Sarah Blakely's message and everything that she stood for. Sorry, my throat's got a little tickle in it. But I loved her story of how she was a mastermind with other men, because when she started, it was mostly men. And she was sitting there listening to the universe and listening to her insights and going in that direction. They got these long business plans and they're doing all this. And all of a sudden she starts excelling faster than them eventually. And they start looking at her going, what are you doing? It's all about trusting your intuition, your inner self, and listening to the universe and going in that direction. I think women just do this a little bit differently than men. And we need to follow that and embrace that. And I thought at first, I was like, my husband gave me such a hard time. Where's your business plan? Where is this? Where is that? and I'm trusting the process. I'm getting towards that business plan, but I wasn't quite ready for it yet. Like, we need to do it a little bit differently. I just love that and about you earlier saying, Graciela, about the universe, and it's so true. And we put that out there, and it starts to propel us forward, and we just have to keep taking those actions.
And that's part of, society is so patriarchal, masculine oriented, and bringing the balance. We get to do things differently than how they've always been. And just because it's been done this way for so long doesn't mean it's the right way. It doesn't mean it's the only way. And we get to try things in different ways now. And absolutely, sinking into our intuition and listening to our soul and what it's speaking to us, so that we can follow that and honor that and see what happens.
And I believe it was Trent, I can't think of his last name right now, but he was saying that this message was given to us by God. So no one else can see it. So if we don't listen to it and believe in it, then no one else is going to be able to it. And so we have to sink into it and kind of just listen and move forward with it, and have that faith and trust in the universe to help us with it.
Yeah. All right. We are avid book readers, and so we always want to know, what is one book that you wish everybody would read?
And I took this one really hard because there's always so many good books, but I really wanted to address the goddess in all of us and my mission and what we're about. And so I picked The Millionth Circle by Dr. Bolian. And in here, she addresses the concept the Dalai Lama said at the Peace Summit, that the Western woman will be what saves the world. And so she kind of dissects it, that it's through these women's circles that we create in this coming together. And so it's a metaphorical million circle, but it's creating these women's circles that will propel what the Dalai Lama said. And so we move forward with that. And so I just thought that was for the goddess in us to really know how to come together and what the purpose is for, and how she interpreted his message is just so beautiful.
And I love this. I keep thinking like, oh, we'll get rid of this question because we've already had all the good books. Everybody's already brought them up, and new book has not been mentioned on the show before. So love that. Need to check it out because this is one that I have not read. So
yeah.
And I just was drawn to her because of the whole concept of the circle. And that's how I run my groups, is by circles. And it is because the circles, like, there's no hierarchy. We are just coming together to support each other. And it's more of a medicine that when we commute together in these circles, that even me as a facilitator in these circles, I come as a participant and I can get the medicine from this group on this night. And that's the whole purpose of it, is that we work together, not one's better than the other. We need to work together to lift each other up.
I love that. That's beautiful. And I think it's also something that is natural for us. Circles are so symbolic, right? In every way. And I think we naturally create circles, like it's natural. Like this is just, it's how we're meant to be. So you're facilitating that, I think is pretty powerful.
And just being intentional when we're doing it, and what we want to do with the circles that we create. And so I love how she explains it and displays it in this book. And I think, and it's a short read, and then she has another one to go with it, and so many different things. But and she's actually been on stage with the Dalai Lama 7 times. And so that's kind of where having those conversations with him as well has ensued her interpretation of his message.
That's beautiful. That's really cool. What a great book. And you're right, Julietta. Like, we always get something new. I told you one of my dreams is to have a physical space for this podcast, and it will definitely have a library with all of these books. That's one of my missions.
I think even just getting a virtual library, just with all the titles together, and putting the image of what us women together can come up with would be amazing, because just the visual of our creativity and all the wonderful guests you've had on.
We have that on the website, don't we, Julietta?
I will say I'm guilty. I have not updated all the books that are on there, but
I must have missed that on the website. I apologize.
It could be a weekend project, but
So is it my turn to ask a question? I feel like I've been asking questions all day.
Go right ahead.
Go right ahead. Okay. So what is the question is what is one thing you've done in your life that you'll never regret? And I want to give you a little bit of background on that so you can formulate your answer. The question is really because I have run across so many people that have told me things that I'm like, wow, I don't know if I ever would have had the guts to do that. It was so risky, or it was so crazy, or it was so like, wow, that's amazing. Like, I'm always amazed by people that live in different countries, or they like Julietta always talks about her living a year abroad, as a Cuban mom. Oh my God, my mom would have had a panic attack had I told her I was going to go live in another country for a year at 19, was it 18, 19? 18. Yeah, no way. My mom would have packed her bags and followed me. So what's one thing you've done in your life that you'll never regret?
Well, it's actually travel as well, because I have been traveling. I did live in England when I was 20 as well, but it was more after that. Since I'd been traveling so much, I actually met my husband online because of a picture I put of me on the Inca Trail, which was the only time I've actually ever mostly backpacked. He didn't know that at the time when we met. But when we decided, we still hadn't talked about marriage or anything, but we had planned, because the summer before I was a teacher and I wanted to volunteer in Nepal to teach Buddhist monks English. So I had this whole trip planned, and my husband looked at the prices of tickets and stuff, or boyfriend at the time, looked at the tickets and stuff and says, well, what if I took 2 months off and we traveled around the world? I'm like, well, I already put my deposit down and I really want to go do this. So I ended up doing this, and he came up to Tibet, and we did 2 weeks there as well. But because I did that and we had this conversation, we took one more year, but then the following year after that, we took the entire year and traveled around the world.
Wow.
384 days, I believe it was. We took the school year, so it was August to August. And because we had actually planned the trip before we actually officially talked marriage. So I said to him, we were pretty much almost planning, like, I'm not going unless we get married. Like, I am not going to go spend a year. And he's like, his whole plan, he's like, you ruin all my surprises. I was going to bring a ring and propose around the world. Like, well, with what money when we got back, we were going to have a wedding. So we ended up 4 months in during Christmas getting married in Australia along the way. And I heard later that his mom didn't buy tickets to Australia till October, making sure that we were going to get through the first 4 months before making Australia. But we did, and we got married. So we just spent the whole year traveling around together. I figured if we could survive that as a couple, that we'd be okay.
That is amazing.
Go ahead.
How do you do that? How do you, I mean, did you take a year off of your life, or did you manage to run a business at the same time? Like, what's the secret?
We took a year off from our lives. I took a leave of absence since I was a teacher. So I took what you call a sabbatical. I wasn't paid for it or anything, but we just had saved up. We just decided that we were going to do this, and we saved up and basically came back completely broke. He actually ended up losing. He was supposed to have his job when he got back, but things changed. And his mom was actually the VP in that company. She got fired towards the end and didn't want to tell us. And so he was actually out of work for probably 9 months when we got back. So I ended up doing 6 periods and just made it work. It ended up working out, but we just kind of took that year and said, peace out.
And everything is okay.
And it worked. And I will admit, we are the heaviest packers ever. We're the heaviest backpackers there were, which is why I struggle with my kids traveling, because we just pack everything. That's not amazing. The best packer, even having backpacked around the world.
My father-in-law taught us to pack for 4 days, and then that's it. Only pack for 4 days, and then you just stop and do laundry, and you got another 4 days. That's how you backpack.
Yeah, I need to get better at that.
I always thought, like, the more you travel, the better you get at it. And because years ago, and I don't know if she's listening to this, I love you, but I went to Italy with a very good friend, and going to Venice, like, we were not staying at a hotel that was on a canal. So we had to walk with our bags to our hotel. And I was like cursing the whole damn way because she had to bring so much stuff with her. And I'm like, I left most of my stuff in our car that was in a parking lot, because you can't drive into Venice. So I left most of my stuff in the car and just packed this little bag. But we're like slowed down because she had all this stuff. And another friend of ours that was local was helping us even, and it was still like, I can't believe that she doesn't know how to lighten the load and just go easy. But you saying that you were the heaviest back, it's like, okay, maybe not everybody has the capability of being a light traveler.
Well,
so.
I guess if I have to, I can, because I did actually take a trip, my first mom trip without kids last summer to Paris with a friend. And with the airports at the time were having the riots, I mean, not the riots, but the protests. So you didn't know, a lot of people were losing their luggage. So I'm like, how do I pack carry-on for a 9-day river boat cruise? I did it and did a really good job. Actually, I would be very proud of myself. And I was so thankful I did, not because my luggage really got lost, but my flight was canceled and I had to run to switch planes. If I had my luggage checked, my luggage would never have got there.
Yeah.
So
everybody's learning that lesson now. Everybody's learning that lesson now with you've seen those YouTube videos or TikToks where there's like hundreds and hundreds of luggage,
Yes.
just a sea of luggage at an airport, like lost forever.
Right. And well, mine would have just been stuck on the other plane and who knows, but I was so glad I packed carry-on for that trip.
Yeah.
So it is possible. I guess I just have to have enough inspiration to do it. We just kept carrying books, I guess, was our problem. Is we started getting heavy with books.
Oh, yeah.
It was 2008, so it was before like too much like handheld stuff. So it's like
That's the first thing I pack. Whenever I go anywhere, the first thing I pack is, okay, which books are going? Then I'll pack my clothes.
And then when we got to English-speaking countries, we would like try to stock up because we didn't know when we'd get English-speaking books again or what countries we'd be in. So we'd have like this load.
That's funny.
Oh, wow. All right. Our final question is, because in addition to a library of books, we're also creating a library of delicious, yummy, sweet memories. And so we would like one of yours to add to that collection.
So actually, on that note, I was thinking about stuff recently because we just got back from Florida, and it was what my memories right now are trying to create really extensive memories with my kids. And so the one thing I want to do while we were in Florida was parasailing. And it almost didn't happen. I was my husband and I anniversary since we got married in Christmas time. And so we're always with the family and stuff. And we just kind of got into a bit of fight. And then we're going to do it on that day because we hadn't really told the kids. I'd asked, and for some reason in me, I wanted to do it with the kids. Like this was something like I only have them for a little bit longer. I want to do these big things with them. And he's like, oh, we can go do it for anniversary. I'm like, my gut told me, no, I want to do this with the kids. And so the next 2 days were foggy. So we couldn't do it. And then Monday was our last day before we were leaving. We actually went to Universal, but we're leaving. And so it's 1:00 and I march out to the beach. And I'm like, we still haven't made a plan. Are we going to? And he's like, well, you seem like you really want to go. So we better go do this. It ended up being the most magical thing ever because I was so fearful of what it might be, but it was just something like nagging at me. I need to know what this is like. And so to do it with my son, who sometimes we have butt heads, to be up in the air with him and feel like we're floating was just such a magical experience that I just was so glad that I didn't give up. Like I kept moving forward to make sure that we did this. And then I watched him, he took the 2 girls and just to watch them float up and then hear how scared Lily, my 6-year-old was. And then she gets like, let's do it again. And I think that's what it was all about for me right now is just trying to create those memories with them, but I still want to do it with me. Trying to do as much as possible.
And how old is your son?
So my son actually just turned 12. And actually the other thing that I got to do with him during the same trip, he and I love pandas. And he took my obsession to an extreme. Like he still sleeps with this panda as a 12-year-old. And so for his birthday, since we were going to do a big party thing at the Atlanta Zoo, they had an experience where you get to feed a panda.
Oh my goodness.
You get into your like doctor gear and you get all lab coat and stuff and they take you inside. At first he said he didn't want to do it. And then we started explaining like, this is the only zoo that does it. We've seen pandas in China. Like you don't do this kind of thing. Like, and China's all these pandas might go back to China soon. We never know when the contracts are up and all this stuff and COVID's they're opening back up. And like, this is your chance, Liam. Do you want to go? He's like, okay. He was like glowing from this and just watching him be able to do that was just another magical experience. I got to do 2 with them. So it's just for me right now, creating those with my kids.
That's a once in a lifetime. That's amazing.
Yes. And I highly recommend anyone who's at the Atlanta Zoo, go do it.
That's really, really cool. I think my son inherited the parts of me that are both adventurous and chicken shit. So we'll be like, yeah, let's go do it. And then when we're on top of whatever it is, we're looking at each other like, oh shit, was this a good idea? So we're both just faking it, trying to keep the other one from panicking. Like, this is great. Yeah, totally great. Yeah, really great. But we're both like, oh my God, I can't believe we did this.
You are so like me, because that was me suggesting to my husband, we're in New Zealand, let's go canyoning. You zip line across the canyon and you rappel down as part of it. I'm like rappelling down and like yelling, I'm out of rope. I'm out of rope. And everyone looks at me and goes, you're in the water. Just let go. Freezing water. I could not feel it because I was so scared. And everyone else is like dropping halfway or like, falling, or me, I'm like in the water and can't even feel the water.
Can't even feel the water. That's amazing. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared today, Michelle. I'm so grateful. I think your vision is a beautiful one.
Oh, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be with you ladies today. And I love watching your show. And I was just telling them that I was binge listening yesterday. Highly recommend everyone listening to more episodes. They're just amazing and so fun to listen to. So come check them out even more, even whichever episode you want. Just hit play. It'll be worth your while.
Thank you, Michelle, for joining us. It's been great having you. Thank you again to our listeners for listening in. We love you.
Love you guys.
Want to wish everybody a magical day.
Bye.
Bye.